the Association of Mineworkers and Construction Union is leading the 11th commemoration of the Marikana massacre today. It is on this day back in 2012 when members of the SA Police Service killed 34 Lonmin platinum mine employees at Marikana near Rustenburg, northwest. The miners were protesting for better wages. Amcu says there will soon be no space to commemorate the site where mine workers were massacred due to encroaching squatter camps. The union says whilst workers have seen some gains since their protracted strike, much more still needs to be done to better living conditions of workers and communities within the mining area. Amcu says though progress has been made in pushing for a monument to be erected at the Kopi, they still need to reach an agreement with the mining company Sibanye-Stillwater. The trade union has reiterated the call that the 16th of August be declared Workers' Day. Meanwhile, residents attending the commemorative event say there are no changes in the area, adding that most people are still struggling and there are no developments. Well, let's take this discussion further. We're going to be joined by Thato Masiangoako, researcher at Socio-Economic Rights Institute. Thato, good afternoon and thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Hi, Lisa, and good afternoon to your viewers.
So 11 years on since the Marikana tragedy, yet some families are still awaiting justice. SERI, representing families of 34 striking miners at this point, who obviously were killed back in 2012 by police. Do you think that we're finally going to see justice being done?
We have to keep our hope that justice will come. The families have called for prosecutions for what happened on the 16th. We have seen prosecutions for what happened prior to the 16th. So there are 6 police officers standing trial for what happened on the 13th of August. And as you mentioned, we represent 36 families. So 3 of the miners of the 36 families we represent were killed on the 13th. The other 33 were killed on the 16th of August. We just have to, we continue to ask why it's taking so long for us to see prosecutions for what happened on the 16th.
We're obviously looking at the delays over the years in ensuring that justice is served. At this point, do you think that the NVA is taking the plight of the families seriously? Is there political will to act as well?
Look, I think the issue of political will is clearly an issue, at least from our perspective. The families in the current trial that's standing, there are 3 senior prosecutors that represent the families on behalf of the state, and they are committed and they've been doing really hard work, but they're also overburdened. So that trial sort of sits, I think 4 times in a year. It sits for about 2 weeks at a time, every 3 months, and that's why that trial has proceeded for the past 2 years and is yet to conclude. And so from our perspective, there hasn't been enough attention or prioritization of this matter on the part of the state, where perhaps those prosecutors could be better resourced, where more resources can be allocated to an expedited process, because it is quite unfair that the families are still waiting 11 years later for even just a prosecution. If the trial for the 13th of August concerning the death of 3 miners and 2 police officers has taken this long, we can only imagine what will happen for a trial dedicated to what happened on the 16th of August, where we have hundreds of police officers implicated in shootings. We have, politicians who may have been involved in decision making, right? So there's a whole host of people that need to account for their actions in connection to the Marikana massacre, including the mine, whom I think has also been allowed to sort of escape some kind of scrutiny as we focus on the state as well.
At this point, then, what immediate interventions would you like to see from government? Lawyers working on the case wanting President Cyril Ramaphosa to apologize. We're also seeing the Farlam recommendations. Not much has been implemented in terms of public order policing. What would you like to see perhaps in the immediate term as the case continues?
Sure. So from the family's perspective, an apology from the president on behalf of the government for what happened on the 16th of August. There have been numerous promises for that, but that's yet to materialize. An in-person, direct, sincere apology on the part of the state in a way that sort of sympathizes with the families for what they've suffered in August in 2012 and what's happened since then. The other thing that the families are calling for is the finalization of the civil claims that were submitted in 2015. You may know, or some of your listeners and viewers may know, that a portion of those claims were paid out, and that was only for loss of support. But those are incomplete, and we've been going back and forth with the state since then about the finalization of these claims. The other thing, as you mentioned, is police reform. In addition to an apology and adequate reparations, victims need to know that something like that cannot happen to other people in this country. And unfortunately, when it comes to public order policing and crowd management, people continue to be at risk of losing their lives when they take part or are just bystanders in a situation where there is a protest. And we're aware that the Minister of Police has, publicly declared that the recommendations that were given to the police have all been implemented. But unfortunately, it's not clear how that has been done and how that's impacting on the ground policing. So recently there were protests in Slovo Park. A boy of 16 years old was killed. That doesn't signify a significant change in behavior. And so we really do call on the police to be open about their processes, about how they're implementing the Farlam Commission's reports, as well as the panel of experts report that was only released, I think, in 2021.